Welcome everyone to McCall's Science Enrichment. Today's experiment is entitled Bendy Bones, and here are the materials you'll need for today's experiment. You will need our good friend, vinegar. Yes, once again, vinegar. This is white vinegar, but you can also use apple cider vinegar or red wine vinegar or any kind of vinegar will do it perfectly fine. And there we are. You will need a container that has a lid, or if you wish, like I'm going to do today, I'm going to take a Ziploc baggie that's big enough to hold what I need it to hold. Make sure that it can be sealed because we're going to be putting some liquid inside of our container. You will need a protractor. Now, I have not gone out to the store to purchase a plastic protractor yet, so in lieu of that, I have printed out a protractor from the internet, and this is my promissory note to remind myself to go get a protractor for when I need it in time. The last thing you'll need today are bones. Yes, actual animal bones. And I would recommend that you use bones like this. Now, I don't recommend using bones that are from beef or from pork. I don't think they'll work for this experiment, but if you have bones from a chicken, or like these bones are bones from a turkey, that will be ideal for today's experiment. Now, you're going to say to me, gee, Mr. Patuski, why are these bones so disgusting looking? Well, they're disgusting because these are bones from my Thanksgiving turkey. And after we were done eating the turkey, and it was delicious, there is still some meat and some other bodily parts left on these bones. I'm trying to let all this grisly stuff dry out so I can clean it up and get rid of it. We don't need all these meaty parts here for this experiment, and that's going to take some time for me to do. So, you're going to say, gee gosh, why do you have bones and why are you keeping them? Well, you're going to find that out here in today's experiment. Now, a little bit of a background about myself. These bones came from a 21-pound turkey, and here's a picture of that turkey after it came out of the oven. It's just about ready to eat. You can see that there's all kinds of bread stuffing shoved into this carcass, and it's wonderful. Now, if you're not a big meat fan or a turkey fan, or you're a vegan eater, that's okay, that's fine. But when I was quite young, I would say probably about third or fourth grade, my father, who was a hunter and a fisherman, actually shot a wild turkey up near our home in upstate Pennsylvania. And this is a picture of him holding that now deceased turkey, and that turkey was 18 pounds. And look how big the wingspan is on this turkey. I remember when my dad shot this turkey. It's what everybody did when we were growing up. This picture is for the local newspaper, and look at the feathers. Look at all the amazing wingspan of this bird. That was an 18-pound turkey, and the bones I'm using right now came from a 21-pound turkey. So I'm using a turkey bones today that are actually bigger than the one that my father hunted way back in the day. Now, I'm going to allow these bones to dry out a little bit more. I'm going to remove some of these awfully sticky bits here, and then we'll go on to our procedures. Hang on a second. Okay, our procedures today are in steps. So this is going to be the first step of our procedures. Now, since you last saw all of our bones, I removed as much of the old greasy, dried up, stale meat that was on them and other parts. But these bones are still sort of oily and greasy. So I wrapped them in paper towels to absorb some of that extra grease. And now I think we're pretty much ready to open up our bag, open up our paper towels and our bones. So as I take the bones out of the paper towel, I'm just going to put them back into the plastic bag. So these bones are various sizes. You know, there's some interesting shapes here, bones from all over the parts of that now formerly eaten turkey, and that's fine. So here's our bones, just like that. Now, I'm going to pour our vinegar into this bag. I'm hoping that there's no holes in this bag, but just in case there is, I'm going to use every precaution that I can, and I'm going to place this bag inside another container. So I'm going to pour my vinegar into this bag so that all of those bones are very well covered. Since I have the vinegar to spare, I'm just going to make sure that everything is covered by that vinegar. None of the bones are sticking up out of that liquid. And take some air out of that container. That should be good. Now, this bag with the bones and vinegar is going to set all by its lonesome, either at room temperature or in the refrigerator, not the freezer, either the fridge or room temperature for at least a week. More if I can. And then we're going to remove these bones from the vinegar and see if these bones have changed in any way. So I'll see you in at least 7 days. Hang on. So it's been 11 days since I soaked these turkey bones in clear white vinegar, and you can notice that some of the turkey flesh that I missed last time on these bones is beginning to flake off. But I can tell you that even feeling through the bag, I can feel that these bones aren't any more bendy than they were before. They're all really, really firm. Now, that's not the way this experiment is supposed to go, and that's common with science experiments. Sometimes things don't turn out the way that they should. So I'm going to hypothesize here, or give it a scientific guess, that the very, very last time I did this experiment was, 1974. Yes, I was in 4th grade. And when I did this experiment last time, many, 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 many moons ago, I didn't use clear vinegar. I used this stuff. I used apple cider vinegar, and it made a big difference. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take all this clear white vinegar and throw it away. I'm going to transfer these bones to a fresh bag, and I'm going to pour this apple cider vinegar into that bag, and I'm going to let it sit for another 7 days or so. We'll see you in 7 days, and we'll see what happens. Hang on. So here we are. It's been 7 days since we took our various turkey bones and replaced the clear vinegar with apple cider vinegar. And now all I'm going to do is to open the bag very carefully, not spill any of the vinegar, reach inside bone by bone, and test any of these bones to see if they are more bendable than they used to be. Now I can verify that when I put these bones in the bag, that these bones were all rather stiff, very dry, and had very little bendability, if at all, to them. So when I take each bone out and test it, if that bone has no additional bendability, I'm going to put it on this left-hand plate here. If a bone feels bendable in a spot where it wasn't bendable before, I'll put that bone here on the right-hand side. So let me open up this little bag. There is a little bit of a sort of an odor or a smell from this vinegar. It's a sour smell, and that's okay. That's fine. So let's take one of our bigger ones here, and let's see what we have here. I've got a bone that now looks sort of like this. Now, if you're testing bones, the best way to test them for bendability, because bones can break, just put your thumbs together like this. And if you simply press a little bit at the center with your thumbs, you should be able to feel if that bone has any additional bendability. And the answer for this bone is no. I don't feel any extra bendability. Now, it is sort of gross here because I've got some old turkey parts on this bone. Let me test this one. Does it feel any more bendable? No, it doesn't. Okay, another big bone here. Let's try this one. Does it feel any more bendable? Not really, no. Okay, so let me go to one like this. Look how big that bone is. Can you imagine how big the turkey would have been? Okay, let's push it there. No, I don't feel any more bendability. Okay, how about this bone? This is a little thinner bone. Does it feel any more bendable? Maybe a little bit. Definitely here. I can feel some kind of, see that motion there? Now I don't know if that's bendability or just a flaw in the bone. I'll put it here on the right. Okay, let's take this bone here. This is a nice long thin bone. Let's see if that bone, oh it does. It feels more bendable. I can definitely, look, I can definitely feel bendability here. Okay, to the right, good. And let's take a shorter bone like this. Does this feel any more bendable? No, okay. And then we have this bone here. And this bone has sort of an odd shape. And if you remember when this bone went in, this is called the wishbone, and we'll talk more about the wishbone here later on. Now, I can feel that this wishbone definitely has some bendability to it, so I'm going to put that to the side. Good. So, In the next scene, we're going to get rid of the non-bendable bones on the left-hand side, and we're going to focus on any of these bones here that felt like they're more bendable after the vinegar. Let's test them in a bit. Here we go. So now, focusing on our 3 bones that felt like they were more bendable after they were soaked in vinegar for almost, 7 days to 2 weeks, we have these 3. Now, this bone here is long and thin. The color of this bone after soaking in that vinegar looks more pale. It's not quite as dark as it used to be. And I can feel that this bone, turkey bones and chicken bones have hollowness to them. They're more hollow than, say, a typical human bone, but I can feel this bone bending with my fingers. If I move to the middle, it's fairly stiff, but at the ends, look how bendable this bone is. Even turkey bones are supposed to bend like this. So something has happened to this bone while it's been soaking in that vinegar. Now for this bone, which is a little bit thicker but shorter, I can actually feel my thumb press into that bone. Now that shouldn't be happening either. These ends feel softer. I can push my thumb into the actual bone itself, and if I really try, I can get that bone to bend here at this connector. And that's not right. That shouldn't be happening, but definitely something has happened to this bone since it has been in the vinegar. Now, for the last bone, the one that I called the wishbone earlier, there's a story behind the wishbone, and I'm going to just introduce a new tool here. Now, in our materials list, I mentioned that I wanted you, if you could, to find something called a protractor. Now, this is a paper version of a protractor, but it'll work just fine. So a protractor basically has this horizontal line here at the bottom, and this is a point where I would be putting my finger, and I'll demonstrate that in a bit. And then if you look over here, there are these little notches, these little marks here, and these indicate with things that are called degrees. Now, if I were to put my finger here and go all the way up to this point, this would be 90 degrees. It's kind of a right angle here. And then all the way down would be 180 degrees, okay? And between these two would be, 145, okay. So basically, if I use these small numbers here, I have 90, I have 0, and then right in between the two, I've got 45. So from this point up to here is what's called a 45-degree angle. Now to simplify this, because this protractor is used for very fussy math, and we don't need to be doing that kind of fussy math today, but this little piece of plastic here, these connexes, basically represents this protractor. So this would be from our baseline here, our horizontal line, this would be the 0 mark, and then comparing this mark to this mark is 90 degrees. And right in between the two is this orange piece that's 45. So it's just a simplified version of our protractor here. Now I'm going to start with this protractor and try to measure how bendable this wishbone has become since it's been soaking in this solution of vinegar. So to do that, I need to compare this wishbone to this wishbone. Now they're about the same size, but they're from different turkeys. The wishbone on the left is from the turkey that I had at Thanksgiving, and this is a bone that's been soaking in vinegar for about 2 weeks now, maybe even longer. Now this wishbone came from the turkey that I enjoyed here in my household over the winter break in December. This wishbone has not been soaking in vinegar, and it is all dried out now, and it's rather stiff. Now when I was carving the December turkey and I removed this wishbone from the turkey itself, this wishbone was a little bit more flexible. It's got some flexibility to it, but it's still very rigid. I could feel that if I really pushed too hard on this wishbone, it would probably snap. But look at this one. If I were to push on the wishbone from November that was been soaking in vinegar, look how much it bends. And you're going to say, gosh, that's weird. Now, you've probably been seeing this wishbone shake. Let's take a look at this. If I were to take this wishbone and place this wishbone even like this, okay? So I've got my finger here at the base of my angle indicator. If I take either end of that and bring it up to that horizontal line, to figure out how much bendability this bone now has now that it's been soaking in vinegar. Can I bring it up to the 45-degree mark? Yes. Can I take it further? Almost. Did it break? No. What about this end? Will this end go up to the 45-degree mark? Yes. Can I take it up to the 90-degree mark? Yes. Did it break? No. Now, there's a reason why all of these bones are much, much more bendable after they've been soaking in vinegar. And that's going to come under the next scene where we discuss the science behind what we're seeing. But before we go there, let me just mention something about wishbones in general. Now, my family comes from Lithuania. Not like I did, but my great-grandparents all came from Lithuania. And every time we would have a turkey in my family when I was a young person, there was always a tradition, and that would be you would harvest the wishbone from the chicken or the duck or the turkey, whatever we were having for dinner, and you would dry it out after a day or two, and then two people would agree that they were going to have a battle over the wish from the wishbone. So even if you take a dry wishbone here that hasn't been soaked in vinegar, one person would grab a hold of this end and one person would grab a hold of this end, and each person would very gently pull. Now look what's happening. It's bending a little bit, but it doesn't want to bend because the two parts are joined. Now there was a tradition in my family. Again, we were Lithuanian descendants, and it was a legend in my family that whoever was able to pull the wishbone and have it break, but that person received most of the break at the top, then that person's wish would come true. And I always thought it was just my family that did this. But I did a little research, and it turns out that any country in Europe where the Roman Empire existed, the Romans brought with them their custom of two people using the wishbone to pretty much grant a wish to themselves. And I did a little more digging, and this practice of breaking the wishbone comes from the Roman practice of osteomancy. Now, the Romans had sort of, they had their own religion, they had their own beliefs, and one of their beliefs was that if you examine the dry bones from a particular animal or a bird, then you could guess with reliability that person's immediate future. Well, the Romans also believed that if you pulled one end of a wishbone and it broke in your favor, then you would have good luck coming to you very, very soon. And Lithuania, according to history, was founded by the Romans, and I think that's where my family brought this tradition from. Now, I know other families that emigrated from Europe brought the same tradition as well. Now, if you were to take this wishbone here that's been soaking in vinegar and pull it, is it ever going to break? Not much. Look at that. You could pretty much fold this up like a flower if you had to. So something radically changed has happened to this older vinegar-soaked wishbone compared to the new one. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, gee, before we discuss this flexible one here, can we go to this wishbone? So pretend that I am, let's say, your older brother or sister, and I'm going to grab that end. And then you are going to grab this end. Okay, let's find out who gets the wish. Ready? 5, pull, 3, 2, 1. Who gets the wish? Ooh, it's resisting. Now this wishbone's kind of thin, but it's still holding on. I'm gonna pull. Who gets the wish? Pull. Who is it? Nobody got it. Look, these parts are equal, and the part that flew off is this. No one got the wish. I've never seen that happen before. Oh, what a disappointment. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about the science of this experiment. Here we go. So looking at the science behind this experiment, bones, the skeletal system of both birds and humans, our bony skeletal systems are made primarily of the element calcium. It's calcium that gives our bones their strength and their ability to support us as we move. Well, vinegar, the liquid that we soak this particular bone in, vinegar dissolves calcium in bones. If you were to take the thin calcium shell of this raw egg, if you were to take the whole thing and put it in a glass of cider vinegar for at least a day, this very thin calcium shell of this egg would be dissolved completely by the vinegar, and you would just end up with the white and the yolk and the egg sac remaining, and that would be it. You wouldn't have any shell left. Well, when you take small, thin bones like this turkey wishbone, it's thin enough so that the calcium that's contained inside this bone is dissolved. It's removed by the vinegar. And when you lose stiffness, you end up with bendiness. Now, this wishbone is supposed to be flexible in a turkey, but it's too flexible that for this turkey to have been able to move had it been this bendy from birth. And this causes problems because in human beings, children especially need to have enough calcium in the foods that they eat to support the calcium in their bones, in their skeletal system. Human beings of any age lose a little bit of calcium from their bones every day. So you have to have enough calcium in the foods that you eat every day to replace it. So if, let's say, a young person didn't have enough calcium in their diet, that young person would be susceptible to broken bones, bad teeth, and a condition called rickets, where your bones can't form properly and you end up with sort of disjointed limbs on your body. It's very serious. You might think that, it's only the big bones that count, but if you've ever broken a pinky bone or the little toe of your foot, you know that it's very, very difficult to do anything with a small break like this. And even small, thin bones like this wishbone count. Every bone counts in your body. You need enough calcium every day to keep these bones strong, and that's important. So the overall lesson of today's experiment is make sure you have enough calcium in the foods that you eat. Now, it just so happens that the top 3 vegetables to eat to maintain the calcium levels in your skeletal system, no matter what your age are, number 1 is collard greens. The number 2 vegetable is spinach. And the number 3 vegetable is kale. Make sure you eat enough of all those vegetables, at least so that you get enough calcium in your bones. You don't want your bones to be bendy like this little wishbone right here. That's it for today's experiment. I hope you had fun. I hope you get a chance to enjoy a turkey or a duck or a chicken and find that wishbone and soak it in vinegar for a week or 2 weeks or so and see how bendy you can get your wishbone to become. Have fun, everybody. We'll see you next time. See you. Bye-bye.